A remote village buried in snow, haunted by whispers of monsters and madness. A father, Ethan Winters, thrown into a waking nightmare, searching for his missing daughter. But in this village, nothing is what it seems. From towering vampires to savage lycans, ancient cults to twisted experiments, Resident Evil Village is a descent into horror like never before. In this video, we break down the story, characters, and secrets that make this chapter a chilling evolution of the Resident Evil legacy.
Bumming that thing that'll...
Mia tells the local story, Village of Shadows, to Rose. The story of a delinquent girl who ran away from her mother and encountered different creatures that gifted her with items until she forcefully took the last object from the last creature and was punished by the creatures for it. Rose falls asleep before Mia could finish the story. Ethan expresses his caution over her telling a scary story to an infant that is too young. She sarcastically asks him to put his daughter to bed. He complies and takes her to her bed cradle. When she is preparing for dinner, Ethan remarks her as someone who had gone full native. Mia tells Ethan to stop worrying. He remarks recent events moving fast. He and his wife have an argument about the events that had happened in Louisiana and how Mia wants to forget it. Mia is suddenly shot in the shoulder before she is gunned down as Ethan heads for cover. Ethan realizes that the attack was carried out by the rogue BSAA Hound Wolf Squad, led by Chris Redfield, who finishes off a weakened Mia in front of Ethan. Chris takes Ethan and Rose as captives, but the squad is forced to knock out Ethan. Ethan recalls a time she argued with Maya about their fears over Rosemary's true nature and the effects she might have inherited from the both of them. Their argument ends when he answers a call from Rosemary's doctor. Ethan awakens at his overturned convoy with the guards dead and Rosemary nowhere to be seen. He picks up a nearby ringing phone where he demands the caller to divulge Chris's and Rose's location, only to be denied an answer. He then sets off to a nearby trail filled with blood and dead carcasses. He stumbles onto an old shack and starts to explore the nearby surroundings. He comes across a large village, which he finds recently deserted. He encounters a villager named Grigori, who was hiding and armed with a shotgun. He asks who Ethan is and who sent him, but before Ethan could respond, the house becomes surrounded by werewolf-like creatures known as lycans. Grigori offers a handgun to Ethan before he is killed by a lycan, while Ethan is dragged down to the basement by another lycan. There, he finds several of the villagers' corpses. A lycan attacks him and bites 2 of his fingers off before Ethan kills it. As he manages to hold out in one of the houses, he overhears a radio transmission telling any survivors to come to Luiz's house. A large pack of lycans, led by the giant Urias, converge on him, but before they can kill him, the bells from the castle lead them away. He comes across an old hag who asks if he was the child's father. When he confirms this, the woman proclaims that after Rosemary was brought to the village by the village deity, Mother Miranda, they have fallen into darkness and warns him that she is in great danger. Ethan sees the nearby castle and surmises that he might find Rose there. Eventually, he comes across 2 surviving villagers, Elena and her injured father Leonardo, who are hoping to join the rest of the survivors at Louise's house, but no one is letting them in. As the lycans start to lurk nearby, Ethan manages to climb over Louise's house and open the gate for Elena and Leonardo before sealing it. Although they are given a cold welcome by a hesitant Julian, the group is welcomed into the home by Louisa. Louisa guides him to the house, meeting other survivors, the drunken Anton, the mourning Roxana, and the crippled Sebastian. Ethan questions if this is all that remains from the village, but Anton angrily responds that there is no one left before insulting the survivors and chastising Louisa for letting in the injured Leonardo and Ethan, an outsider. Louisa responds that her house has been protecting her family for generations, and that she reassures him that all are welcome and safe in there. When Ethan asks what is going on around the area, she tells him that they were once a quiet, devout village, but then the monsters came and attacked them. Elena asks where is Louisa's husband, to which she answers that he went outside to get help. Unbeknownst to her, her husband Ernest had already been killed some time ago by a varkolak, which are heavily mutated lycan in areas near the reservoir. Roxana suggests for them to pray to Mother Miranda for his safety. They all join hands and pray. Ethan notices the prayer reminded him of the old hag's words. Leonardo calls the hag crazy, but Louisa instead believes it is through the woman's devotion that she is still alive. Suddenly, Leonardo roars in pain before attacking and instantly killing Louisa with his machete, as well as knocking down a lantern that causes a fire. Ethan beckons Elena to escape as Leonardo, exhibiting lycan abilities, kills the rest of the survivors. Leonardo pounces at Ethan before Elena fires at her father with a shotgun blast. As the two escape to the garage, Elena mourns her father as Ethan manages to get Louisa's truck working in hopes to ram their way outside. When he instead crashes the car, the two decide the escape upwards to the attic, where Elena warns Ethan that the castle is nothing but blood and death. Leonardo, somehow still alive, manages to climb upward and calls out to Elena in pain. Despite Ethan's warnings, Elena quickly runs to him when the wooden plank providing her way back collapses, separating the two. Leonardo falls through to the fire. Despite Ethan offering help, Elena tells him to go and to save his daughter before the floor collapses and she falls into the fiery depths below. Ethan angrily leaves the burning house through the window as he muses that people keep dying around him. He steps outside, only to witness Mother Miranda killing Julian. After pursuing her, he then encounters the old hag from before, who happily stated that death has visited them all. He manages to open the stone door leading to the castle, using two crests found around the village. Ethan then heads to the castle, but he is later captured by a man with seemingly electromagnetic field powers. He is then taken to a meeting with Mother Miranda and the other house's lords. Lady Alcina Dimitrescu, the vampiric countess of the castle Dimitrescu, Donna Beneviento, the puppeteer who controls a doll named Angie and lives in House Beneviento, Salvatore Moreau, a heavily mutated fish-like hunchback who is the owner of Moreau's Reservoir, and Carl Heisenberg, the man who captured Ethan and owner of Heisenberg's factory where he has been running inhumane projects inside. Dimitrescu and Heisenberg argue who should have him, with her wanting to kill Ethan and offers his cups of blood to Miranda, and Heisenberg wanting to put on an entertaining show for everyone to enjoy. Miranda decides that Ethan's fate belongs to Heisenberg. He then gives Ethan a 10-second head start before sending lycans after him. He runs away and manages to avoid the threats ahead. His exit is conveniently in front of Dimitrescu's castle, where he meets the Duke, a merchant who offers him weapons and supplies for the journey ahead. As he enters the castle in hopes of finding Rose, he is captured by the Dimitrescu's daughters, Bela, Cassandra, and Daniela, instead. They proceed to drag him to meet their mother, who is surprised that he survived Heisenberg's game. She then orders her daughters to hang Ethan up with hook chains, while she goes to inform Miranda of this development. While they are gone, he manages to free himself by forcefully ripping his hands through the hook. After traversing through areas of the castle, he comes across the Duke, who somehow conveniently appears in various locations around the village. The Duke then suggests that Dimitrescu is keeping Rose in her private chambers somewhere in the castle. As he explores the castle, he encounters Cassandra, whom he escapes from by falling and reaching the wine cellar. He reaches the castle's torture chamber, where he fights off several mutated ghouls known as Moroeca, who were former servants of the castle that somehow scorned Dimitrescu and her daughters. The chambers also house the bodies of village men that they tortured, with their blood being made into their exported wine, Sanguis Virginis. Ethan is then attacked and caught by Bela, but a stray shot by Ethan damages a window, which breaks and lets the cold air in, which is implied to be the daughter's weaknesses. Ethan manages to kill the weakened Bela, who calcifies and crumbles to the ground. Ethan then solves more puzzles and battles various Moroeca before overhearing a conversation between Dimitrescu and Miranda on the phone, which ends with her frustratingly throwing her dressing table. He sneaks in to get the key but is caught by the Countess, where she proceeds to violently slam him against the ground and sending him to the dungeons below. He navigates the dungeon and eventually finds the panel, but gets his hand cut off by Dimitrescu's sharp claws. But Ethan manages to elude her long enough for him to reattach his hand and escape from the Countess. He later comes across the sadistic Cassandra in the arsenal room, where he manages to weaken her by throwing a pipe bomb to a cracked stone wall and letting the cold air in, weakening her before finishing her off. Finally, he comes across Daniela in the library, where he opens the overhead skylight to let the wind in to kill the final daughter. Ethan manages to access a dagger dubbed the Dagger of Death's Flowers, which is laced with poisons from around Europe, and uses it in self-defense from an attack by Dimitrescu. The reaction, the dagger mutates Dimitrescu into a grotesque dragon-like creature. The two battle in the castle's exterior until Ethan lands several fatal shots that kill and calcify her. He is able to retrieve a glass flask that emerges and heads to a nearby underground cave. There he meets the old hag again, chanting the same prayers as before. Ethan demands her to tell him what is going on and where Miranda took Rose. She laughs, telling him that Rose will be sacrificed as a life for a life. She points out that the crest of the four families may open a path that he seeks. Ethan stares at the emblem, eerily similar to the logo of the Umbrella Corporation. He then travels to the altar, where he meets the Duke once more. The Duke then reveals to the horrified Ethan that the glass flask he received contains the head of Rosemary. Duke clarifies that Rose can be saved as her powers enables her essence to remain. He then points him to a house with a red chimney on the western side of the village. With no options, he reluctantly traverses there and finds its owner killed by a lycan. He takes the expanded winged key to the Duke, who says it can help him access the other flask containing Rose by confronting the other lords, Beneviento, Moreau, and Heisenberg. He first heads to House Beneviento. On his way, the plants near the graves of Beneviento's parents emit a pheromone that affects Ethan. He begins hallucinating Mia, who is holding their daughter Rose, and beckons and leads him to House Beneviento. Upon entering, he starts to explore around the house and finds the second flask sitting on Beneviento's doll, Angie. During the journey, he picks up a call from Mia, who tells him that she didn't want to keep something a secret from him, and she doesn't want to lose him or their family. Each time he successfully solves parts of the puzzles, the radio nearby picks up a transmission from Mia, with succeeding transmissions growing more and more distressed. Along the way, he is pursued by a hallucination of a large, grotesque baby that emits Rose's crying. He manages to reach the top side of the house, where he is greeted by Beneviento and Angie. Beneviento pleads with him not to leave and sends the other dolls to attack him. He manages to repel the dolls, and Angie demands he find her quickly in a game of hide and seek before he gets attacked by the other dolls. Every time Ethan finds her, he stabs her in the head. He eventually deals the finishing blow towards Angie. He comes to his senses and realizes that he has killed Beneviento, who calcifies and crumbles. He retrieves her flask of rosemary and another piece of the winged key before leaving the house. After fending off Moroaca and the lycans that have littered the paths, he ventures his way to Moreau's reservoir, which consists of an abandoned, derelict, and flooded fishing village with a monstrous fish in the water. He manages to retrieve the flask from an unsuspecting Moreau before he sees Ethan and asks him what he was going to do with Miranda's special child. Ethan angrily exclaims that Rose was not hers, and Moreau responds by saying that Miranda wants her baby back before pleading with him to give him back the flask. He then reveals that he has blocked Ethan's exit, but the latter manages to escape his acidic blockades. Ethan soon finds a tent near the reservoir, which contains equipment used for research. He is attacked, Hound Wolf squad member Night Howl, and confronted by Chris, who has been based in the outpost. Ethan then angrily exclaims that Chris killed Mia, and he should just finish him off instead. Night Howl notices motion readings near the area and advises Chris that they should move on, fearing that Miranda knows their location. When Ethan hears her name, he demands Chris to tell him how they were involved, but he rejects divulging more information. They have also been doing sample analysis, and the infection is related to the mold. The three notice the mutated fish was heading their way. Chris warns Ethan to stay out of their path before they are separated by the large fish and thrown into the water. Ethan climbs on a dock alongside Moreau who tells him that his exit is underwater and that Miranda is preparing for the ceremony before falling to the water, revealing himself as the large fish creature. As he escapes the mutated Moreau, Ethan sets off and manages to open the dam and drain the water. Ethan then proceeds to battle Moreau at the dried-up fishing village, with Ethan emerging victorious. Ethan manages to arrive at the stronghold and pull up 2 levers to gain entry inside. He navigates around inside, which is infested with endless packs of lycans. He enters deeper, where he once again meets and battles Urias. After killing him, he retrieves the final flask. Ethan has a vision of the 4 lords extracting Rose's body parts. Heisenberg then praises Ethan for his efforts and directs him into putting the 4 flasks back at the altars. Ethan puts all of them in the altar and carries the giant's chalice to the other pedestal when it descends down and opens up to Heisenberg's factory. He gets inside and is greeted by Heisenberg. He tells Ethan that he is being played as a test to see if he was strong enough to be part of Miranda's family. Ethan angrily exclaims that he doesn't want to be a part of her family, to which Heisenberg agrees and explains that even Miranda is frightened of Rose's potential power. He then offers Ethan to go together and to save Rose, and so he could use her as a means to kill Miranda. Ethan rejects his offer, saying that his daughter is not a weapon for his usurping scheme. Heisenberg then responds by kicking Ethan down to the bottom of his factory. Ethan is then chased around by Sturm, a creature with a propeller as a torso. He manages to evade it, but finds himself deeper into the factory, where he fights off several of Heisenberg's mechanical soldat creatures. As he navigates his way through the factory, Heisenberg shares how Miranda forcefully took several children, including himself, as part of her experiments to become her servants. He shares his desire to achieve power and to free himself from Miranda's grasp. Ethan encounters Sturm again and puts it down for good. Upon reaching the top, he is attacked again by Heisenberg, who mutates himself into a large, biomechanical creature. The mutated Heisenberg tells Ethan to stay away before knocking him down again to the bottom of his factory. After Ethan crawls through a vent, he is subdued and disarmed by Chris, who has infiltrated the factory and is in the middle of planting explosives beneath it. Chris told him to stay away, but Ethan angrily exclaims that he killed Mia. Chris starts to explain that the Mia he shot was a disguised Miranda, who has shape-shifting powers from her status as a bioweapon. Ethan angrily demanded to know why he was never informed of this, only for Chris to shout that Ethan would want to be involved. He then asked him to explain everything. Chris explains that Miranda herself is insane, and that the monsters and village was her life's work, as they were her experimentations with the mold. Ethan laments that it is a repeat of the events of Dolby, but Chris reveals that Miranda is now in possession of the flasks. Chris then provides Ethan with a metal polymer tank that he could use to battle Heisenberg. Chris promises Ethan that they will get his daughter back together. Ethan takes the artillery and rides the elevator up to the surface, where he faces against the mutated Heisenberg. After an intense battle, Heisenberg overturns the tank, and he is about to kill Ethan until he is momentarily distracted from the explosion in the factory. Heisenberg is enraged about the loss of his robot army that he would have used to wage war with Miranda. Ethan is forced to fight Heisenberg on foot before the latter creates an electrical storm that enables Ethan to reacquire the tank and use it to fire at Heisenberg's weak spot to finish him off. Ethan is then called by Chris and explains to him that he managed to defeat Heisenberg. Although Chris tells him to wait for him, Ethan is confronted by Miranda, who taunts him with her Mia form before reverting to her original form. She explains to him that Rosemary is not only Evelyn's successor, but her true, complete form, so she must have her. Miranda says that the mold root catalogs all of them, and Rose will be reborn as her daughter Eva. Miranda then begins to shift several forms and reveals herself as the old hag all along. With Ethan enraged, Miranda finally makes her move and attacks him, ripping his heart out and assuring him that he will be part of the mold root's records. Ethan dies at her feet, and she leaves to start the ceremony to revive her daughter. A member of the Hound Wolf squad confirms Ethan's death to Chris. Chris recaps the situation to his team. He admits he and the team were careless in thinking they killed Miranda under the guise of Mia, which resulted in Miranda faking her death, attacking Ethan's convoy, and kidnapping Rosemary. When he last contacted Ethan, he had heard Miranda's voice and knew she was responsible for his death. Knowing that Miranda needs to be put down after their 3-year investigation, he initiates a full-on attack with Hound Wolf against Miranda to avenge Ethan. The team also noticed that the BSAA has arrived for unknown reasons. Chris instructs the team to stick with the mission, terminate Miranda, and save Rosemary, while K9 is ordered to investigate the BSAA's presence. He shares that due to their recons at the Mojave Desert, they now know Miranda's plan. As the team shares worries and intimidation at Miranda's abilities, they witness the village now set ablaze with the ceremonial site guarded by a large mold barrier. The team moves in the village from different directions, then manages to find the large mold root before attaching an N2 neutron bomb to it. Before he could detonate it, he is determined to kill Miranda first to avenge Ethan. Chris then orders his men to have eyes on Miranda but keep their distances as he heads to Miranda's lab. Chris is told that they should have informed Ethan of their plan sooner. Although he acknowledges his mistake, he responds that there wasn't any time and that he didn't expect Miranda to act so soon. Inside her lab, Chris learns several pieces of information regarding Miranda's experiments with the mold and her past. She was a biologist whose daughter Eva perished to the Spanish flu. In her mourning, she decided to venture into the nearby caves to die, only to find the mold root by chance. The mold root breaks down and absorbs the consciousness of those that perish. Due to the regenerative abilities brought about by the mold, she began experimenting with the mold, such as developing the Kadu parasite and managing to give herself seeming immortality. Over the years, Miranda's experiments with mold were several ways to find a host for Eva to revive in. The 4 lords were 4 candidates who managed to bond with the Kadu, but were unable to be suitable hosts for Eva. Miranda posed as the village deity alongside the 4 lords, while secretly using the villagers for her experiments. Those who had a negative reaction to the Kadu parasite became lycans and Moroaka. She also collaborated with the Connections to create Eveline by lending the mold and some of Eva's DNA, but Eveline was yet another unsuitable host. The Connections then informed her of Rosemary's existence, and Rosemary proved to be a perfect host for Eva. One of Miranda's students was Oswell E. Spencer, who would go on to found the Umbrella Corporation. Though they remained in good terms, they parted because Miranda simply wanted to resurrect her daughter, while Spencer believed that widespread human infection through virus was necessary for human evolution. He informed her that they had found the progenitor virus in Africa, and that he would begin a new company, Umbrella, with its logo inspired by the symbol of the 4 lords in the cave. Chris notices a locked door and shoots it off, where he finds the real Mia alive after confirming that Miranda is at the ceremony site. Mia is angry at Chris for claiming that her family would be safe in moving, and demands to know where her husband and daughter is. He tells her that Ethan is gone, but he could still save Rose. Seeing as their surroundings aren't safe, he tells Mia to follow him. Mia then tells Chris that Ethan isn't gone yet, and that she had been trying to keep it a secret, as he doesn't know how special Ethan truly is. Ethan finds himself wandering on a cold wasteland, where he is taunted by Eveline, who tells him that he is dead. Ethan assumed it was Miranda who killed him, but Eveline rebuffs, telling him that Ethan has always been dead, and it was never under the hands of Miranda. Eveline then questions Ethan how it wasn't weird that he is still alive, no matter how much he got hurt. Eveline tells him that years ago back at Louisiana, Jack Baker had killed him after Ethan's fight with the infected Mia up on the attic, and that Ethan was infected from the start. The only thing that is keeping him alive was the mold. Eveline goads that he will never see his family again, but Ethan is determined to save Rose. He wakes up inside the Duke's carriage. The Duke had rescued him and is bringing him to Miranda, knowing that he would want to fight her one last time. He notes to Ethan that his body is falling apart, but acknowledges his drive to save Rosemary. Upon arriving at the ceremonial site, the Duke warns that Ethan is at the point of no return and cannot return to his old life any longer, but Ethan remains determined. Ethan battles his way to Miranda, who sees that Rosemary has been reborn instead of Eva, and her powers begin leaving her. After a distraction caused by Chris, Ethan and Miranda wrestle over Rose, but Miranda's desperation wins out and absorbs Rose within herself as she mutates through several forms to fight Ethan. Ethan fights and manages to defeat Miranda once and for all, and she shouts for her daughter one last time before calcifying and crumbling to dust. Rose emerges from her remains, but Ethan loses consciousness as his body begins deteriorating, with his mold dying off following Miranda's death. Chris manages to reawaken Ethan, and he helps guide him and Rosemary outside the site as they need to be a safe place before he could detonate the bomb. What remains of Miranda's consciousness merges with the mold root into a larger, berserk form and pursues the three. Chris tells Ethan not to give up, saying that Mia is alive and waiting for him. Knowing he is dying, Ethan apologizes and confesses his love to Mia before handing Rosemary and his coat to Chris. He tells him to keep Rose safe and to teach her to be strong before grabbing the detonator when mold separates Ethan from the other two. Ethan says his goodbyes before they go their separate ways. Chris boards his transport with Rosemary and Mia. Mia notices that Ethan is not with them and demands to know where he is. Ethan uses the last of his strength to trigger the detonator, destroying himself, the mold root, and the village. As Mia realizes Ethan had died in the explosion, Chris explains that he had tried to save him, but Ethan offered to sacrifice himself to save everyone else. K9 informs Chris that the BSAA sent bioweapons dressed as soldiers to fight Miranda's army, having recovered a body from his recon. Chris then orders K9 to pick up the rest of the squad and plot a course to BSAA Europe HQ, demanding that someone has to pay. Mia mourns her husband as she cradles Rosemary. The conclusion of the Village of Shadows story is shown. Years later, a post-credits sequence follows a grown-up Rosemary boarding the bus en route to the cemetery to visit her father's grave, with the Village of Shadows book in tow. She wishes him a belated happy birthday, having missed the previous week due to being tested on. An agent for an unspecified organization arrives at the cemetery saying that she is needed. The agent jokingly name-drops her as Eveline, but Rose responds by violently grabbing his tie and threatening him not to call her that again, lest she reveal her abilities that even Chris doesn't know. As a remorseful Rose boards the car, the agent signals to his partner to stand down from firing at her and to understand that she is still young. The agent tells her that she is like her father, and she responds that she knows with a smile before they drive off.